The average woman that frees eggs on Amilis is 35. But there are risks attached to it. And it's important that every woman knows that. You know, you're not going to spend less than £6,000. As soon as you're 30, then you're like, in your mind, I'm like, oh no, I need to get pregnant to find a husband. This is the time I have, this biology, blah, blah. So, you know, like we live in a society that eventually, you know, like first you don't get pregnant, then you have to get pregnant, finding a husband, freezing your eggs, and all of this shit. So, and
It's a lot.
It's a lot to handle.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Catch-Ups in My Kitchen with me, Georgia Simmons, host of the podcast. This week, I am so excited about my guest. This is a world that I embarrassingly didn't actually know much about. I am joined today by Sarita, the co-founder of Amilis, which is basically your one-stop shop to all things egg freezing. So Sarita actually started Amilis after her own personal journey with egg freezing because she realised that actually there was no information around the whole journey, and Amilis aims to be that kind of unbiased best friend that holds your hand throughout the journey. So I am 25 years old and I've actually never thought about my fertility journey. I want children, but I have never thought about how I'll have children and what my options are. And that's actually really embarrassing. I think as women, we need to take our options and our fertility into our own hands. And I think Amilis is doing an incredible job about raising awareness about our options and what we can be doing now. And as a result of this conversation, I'm definitely going to be actioning a lot of the things that she spoke about, because there's a lot that we can do at the age of 25 in our kind of mid to late 20s to prepare ourselves for that time that we want to have children. I'm not going to ruin this because there's a lot in this which I think Sarita is going to explain a lot better than me. But I was so fascinated by everything that she said, and I had so many questions, which I feel like you guys all will as well. So please enjoy this episode. As always, please help me spread the word. Like, share, and subscribe. Send this to your bestie who also needs to be informed. Egg freezing is on the rise and we need to know about it, whether we're sharing it with friends, whether we're helping them with their decision, or whether this is to help with our own journey and our decision. It is just so important. So enjoy the episode. I absolutely loved it. I know you will too. And as always, have a lovely, lovely rest of your day. Sarita, welcome to my kitchen. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much. What about you?
I'm good. I'm really excited about this conversation. But before we get started, do you mind giving a quick elevator pitch? Who you are, what you do?
Yes. So I'm Sarita. Hi, everybody. I am the CEO and co-founder of Amilis, the women's health and egg freezing platforms that provide information to women that are looking into their fertility and fertility preservation from the beginning to the end of the journey. Exploring fertility, bookings, going through the treatments, and collecting eventually the eggs if that's for you.
Amazing. I think this is just so important. And I think as a 25-year-old who wants children but hasn't really thought about anything else at this point, I'm like, wow, it's crazy that I haven't. And I think I really want this episode to highlight to everyone that we need to be thinking earlier and sooner rather than later about our fertility and our journey and what we want and how our bodies are. And so we'll go into all of this in more detail in a minute, but we have a quick fire round about all things food to kick things off. So, cook in or eat out?
Cook in.
What is your favourite restaurant in London?
Bocca di Lupo.
Someone said that before on here.
Yeah.
I haven't actually been. I need to go. What is your go-to delivery?
I always order dumplings. So like Chinese food, dumplings is my go-to.
Yeah, good one. What's your go-to cuisine?
Pizza.
What is your go-to fridge or cupboard staple?
Which one? Sorry.
Like something that you always have in your fridge or your cupboard. Pasta, yeah. And what's your favourite dish to cook at home?
I'm a fish person, so definitely some grilled fish or in the oven. Healthy,
Nice.
yeah.
Okay, amazing. So I would love to start with your personal journey, just to kind of give the bigger picture on kind of like how you got to Amilis. So do you mind touching on your journey with your fertility and then how that led you to kind of starting Amilis?
Yes. So I started Amilis from my personal experience through fertility. I met what is now my husband back in time, and my father-in-law is a gynecologist with a fertility clinic. And one of the first things he told me in the first few months that I was dating his son is, you should freeze your eggs. And I took that very personally because I was 28 at the time and I knew nothing about my fertility, to be fair. The only thing I knew is that I was healthy, that I got my periods, like a few things, but I actually didn't know if I was fertile or not because I never tested. I never even thought about the problem. I never thought about the option. So I took that on a personal note. I was like, why am you are saying this? This is like, I have so many years. I can have kids later if I want to. I'm not even thinking about it. And I was like, no, I can see your lifestyle, guys. You're traveling. We spent a month in New Zealand. We went here, we went there. And the last thing we were thinking is I was building a family. So skip on another year, 2 years, 3 years. And then I decided, maybe I should freeze my eggs. So I started testing. I did my AMH test. And I discovered that just from a simple blood test, you understand a lot about your fertility. It tells you how many years you have ish to consider to be a mother, if you have condition like polycystic ovaries, or if your hormonal levels are on right or not. So just from a simple blood test, you can understand also if you are perimenopausal. So there are a lot of factors to a simple blood test that nobody ever told me. And if I could, I would have done it when I was 21, 22, to be fair, because it's very important. So I did the investigation. I did a vaginal scan, which is required before you even consider egg freezing. And then when everything was like, they gave me the good to go, I went ahead and froze my eggs. And so a lot of patched communication between me and the clinic or the doctor. I walk blindly into a treatment. And I thought that should not happen to any other woman out there. So I decided to do something about it. And I created Amilis from my personal experience. And I had a lot of support. I'm thinking about it like maybe a single woman out there that is going through this alone, how much support she needs. And that's also why we created Amilis, for offering support, going through the treatment, like we are the friend that holds your hands, providing unbiased information, tells you how much it costs, helps you to find a clinic. So we are really holding the hand of any woman that goes out there and wants to understand their fertility and understand if egg freezing is ultimately for them.
Amazing. I love the fact that you mentioned like we are the unbiased friend that holds your hand, because it's so true. Because sometimes if you go to a clinic, they are going to be talking about it from one side. They are going to want to sell you their services. They're going to want, they are slightly biased. And this is such a personal experience. Like it's really intrusive. It's really traumatic maybe. It's really uncomfortable maybe. It's a really big deal. So you do need to have that person holding your hand, I guess. So your reason for freezing your eggs was purely timing, I guess. You were like, I want a family, but I'm also really happy in my lifestyle right now, and I just want to freeze my eggs just so I've got time on my hands. Was that your reason?
Exactly. I actually sit down with my husband, and we were like, we have no intention to become parents anytime soon. And we wanted to just have options in the future, because maybe now we have a 7 months old, which came naturally, but you never know. I'm not that young, I'm 35 now, and I have no intention, like if you ask me now, after sleepless nights, I would not have another child anytime soon. Like if I lose my mind in 2 years maybe and I decide to go for another one, I would be 37 or 38, which fertility wise in age, I'm not young. I'm a geriatric mother. So and the longer you wait, the more chromosome abnormalities can happen with your pregnancy, with your fetus, and it's more difficult to become pregnant and so on. So there are a lot of factors to consider. Even if you decide to have a kid at 35 for the first time and you have it naturally and you want more, you have to have options.
100%. And I think we are now in a world where we want to do so much. we want to progress our careers. We want to experience married life with our partners more and travel and explore the world. Like, there's so many possibilities out there. There's so much we want to achieve. And sometimes children aren't the first thing on the agenda. So I do think that's a really important thing to note. So I want to go back to AMH testing. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So you mentioned this to me as soon as we sat down, and I was like, I didn't even know what it was. And I mean, I am literally going to look into this as soon as this episode is done. I'm going to be like booking mine, because it's so you can find out how many eggs you have. So can you touch on what you explained to me earlier about how many eggs we're born with? Because this even blew my mind. And then why we should be testing now.
Yes. So AMH test is a simple blood test. In Amilis, for example, we partner with a lab facility and we offer the cheapest test in this country. And it's independent from the clinic, which is very important, because sometimes you just, stepping into a clinic, it's overwhelming. It can be expensive, so, maybe you're not there yet that you want to go to a clinic. And especially, like women on their early 20s, they don't want to go in a fertility clinic and see like people that maybe are going for like tough fertility journey. They want to test independently and own their fertility journey and understand their fertility levels. So that's why we decided to partner with a lab that we have facilities all around the country. So if you're located in Liverpool, we have a lab in Liverpool. You can just walk into the testing facility. We partner with Randox. So you can just walk in there, do your AMH test, and in 2-3 days, you receive the results. So this test is very important, and it's better to do it sooner rather than later. So even if you're 21, 22, you can just go ahead and do your test. Through Amilis is 50 quid, so very affordable.
Yeah.
What this test tells you is how good is your ovarian reserve. And by good, there's a lot of factors affecting fertility, and AMH is just a big indicator. It's also widely dependent on age. So let's say on your 20s, it should be on a good ovarian reserve or high ovarian reserve. If it comes out in some different levels, it means that, for example, a woman could have polycystic ovaries, which is something that needs to be addressed. And also it tells you that you might have more difficulties becoming pregnant in the future. So, there are actions following the AMH test. If you are, 25, you test, you have a good ovarian reserve or a high ovarian reserve, you know that you have time to plan your family. Maybe reason is not even in your radar, but it's good to know, because it could come out that you could have condition affecting your fertility, or you could be perimenopausal, for example, which means that you will approach menopause sooner rather than the average age that a woman approach menopause.
This episode is sponsored by Access Biotics, a groundbreaking natural food supplement which uses 4 billion live bacteria, which specifically help support skin health through the gut microbiome. I have always had pretty good skin and take a lot of care in the products I use and my skincare routine, but I've always suffered from psoriasis, and recently I have had a rash on my chin which I can't seem to get rid of. I have therefore been taking Access Biotics in order to help with this, as the ingredients specifically help with psoriasis and other skin conditions, and I'm already noticing a difference. Since speaking to the Access Biotics team, I have heard that 2 in 100 people in the UK also suffer with psoriasis, which is a crazy statistic that I was not aware of. Therefore, if you are tired of trying different products and want something that actually works in order to support your gut microbiome and benefit your skin, give Access Biotics a go. You can buy their 28-day supply directly from their website at www.accessbiotics.com, and you can receive 10% off if you use the code CATCHUPS. Have it with some warm water on an empty stomach in the morning and you will notice a world of difference. Now let's get back to the episode.
So, and that means that you should have kids in your 20s rather than your 30s, because there are some women, they go to menopause at 35.
Gosh.
So just from a simple blood test, you will be able to scoop a lot of these factors. And it's interesting that you said that you didn't know about it, because I always ask myself why we don't know about it. Nobody really, NHS obviously doesn't tell you. Your GP doesn't even know that an AMH is in the list of things that you could possibly do. They don't really offer it unless you're going through cancer treatments and you have to freeze your eggs before doing chemo. So, like, I always wonder why we're not telling women just to go out there and test.
100%. I mean, £50 isn't that much.
No.
But with all that information, it should be like, you have to do it. Like at school, we have to get jabs done and vaccines if you go on holiday, and we have all these things that we have to do. Why is this not crucial, like mandatory? It's actually crazy. So how many eggs are we born with?
So when we are in the mom's womb, we have around 5 million eggs, and then as soon as we are born, they halve.
Why? How?
I don't know why nature thought that this was a good...
Yeah, that's so unfair.
And that's so unfair, like we're born and they halve. So like my daughter that is 8 months, she probably has around 2.5, 3 million eggs. And as soon as you start having your period, obviously you lose some every month. And when you get to menopause, you basically don't have eggs anymore. So that's also something that you have to consider. We are born with all the eggs we will ever have. So you don't get more or anything during the lifetime. You have all the eggs that you have when you're born, essentially. Yeah. And as soon as you get your period, you lose some.
And how many eggs do we lose during our period? Or is that very personal?
It depends. It's very personal, yes.
Okay, amazing. I mean, I also didn't even think about that. I didn't think about the fact that our body obviously doesn't make eggs. So,
which is interesting because, for example, with sperm, they do make new sperm all the time. Not all the time. I think sperm regenerates every 3 months. So men produce new sperm every 3 months unless they have conditions.
Okay, so interesting. Okay, so let's touch on the egg freezing procedure and the egg freezing journey. So do you mind kind of going from start to finish? If you decide to freeze your eggs for whatever reason that may be, what is the journey that you then go on?
Yes. So if you start egg freezing, or it means that you have this at the back of your mind for quite a bit. What we have seen from our women and our patients that go through the treatment is that they're probably even have the back on their mind for years. Mm-hmm. So 1-2 years they heard about it, and then it takes you a decision, okay, I'm gonna actually do it. The average woman that freeze eggs on Amilis is 35. The average age a woman frees their eggs in the UK is 37 years old. Wow. Which is an interesting stat. So we're seeing that, through Amilis, we are doing this work of awareness, and we are bringing the age a bit earlier, which it's better in terms of like the outcomes of the treatment.
Yeah.
It's great for us to see. So let's assume you have decided to go ahead with the treatment. Usually there's a lot of questions like, where shall I go? How do I start? And that's also what we do on Amilis. Like we have our blogs that explain the treatment, just raising a bit of awareness. We do events. And you start the treatment by, for example, understanding where to go. So in Amilis, we partner with clinics. You can have your free initial consultation with 2 clinics that you can decide that we partner with. And this is just for you to understand, I prefer a boutique clinic or a bigger hospital. I'm speaking with this doctor, I like this guy, or I didn't feel it so much, because it's very personal. So there's a feeling that you will have with the doctor or not, which is totally fine. And then you can speak with somebody else and you might like them, so you just go ahead. And this is very important because I spent thousands of pounds going around London just to find my clinics.
Yeah, because every consultation costs
250 quid.
Yeah.
So, and that's also like I did on the thing, they make you do an AMH test, a vaginal scan. So you end up spending like 500, 600 pounds every time you step into the clinic. So that's why also with Amilis, this is free. You just speak with one of our partner clinic, and then you decide. Once you decide, okay, I'm speaking with this clinic, I love the doctor, I'm proceeding, we onboard you at starting the journey with the clinic, and then obviously the clinic takes over. You will walk into the clinic, you will do your AMH test, and a vaginal scan usually is done the same day. AMH gives you an idea what's your fertility level, let's say your ovarian reserve level. Simply put, if doctors will hear me, they will kill me, because like they will explain to you exactly like all the possible factor, but I'm keeping it simple. And then they do a vaginal scan to check if you have cysts or fibroids or like anything that is good with your ovaries. So they will explain all of this to you. Once they receive the result for AMH and they check your ovaries, they will tell you, yes, egg freezing is for you, no, egg freezing is not for you.
So why would it not be for you?
And maybe you have your ovaries are not okay, or you have some condition, you have some cysts that you have to remove before the treatment.
Fine.
So there are some, or like they will tell you you have another condition that needs to be addressed, or your hormone levels are very low, and they will give you also some medication, some treatments to do even before starting the injection of the treatment. So there's a lot of things that like they will address eventually before even tells you that yes, egg freezing is for you, can start next week.
Yeah, fine.
So that's how it works. So sometimes, like for example, if you do the test with one of our partner facility, for example, you don't have to repeat the AMH test as far as is within 6 months window.
Okay.
So if you have done an AMH before, they will ask you to have it in 6 months window, just to be clear. Everything is well. As soon as you get your period, first day of the period, your treatment starts. By that day, they will have sent you your medications at home. Medications are injection that you self-inject yourself on the lower part of the abdomen. You pinch yourself, inject, and that's it. You inject yourself around 6 days, varies from woman to woman. The last day that you self-inject yourself, you have the trigger shot. No, you have another injection. So you have one injection for 5-6 days, then you have 2 injections for other 3-4 days, and then the last day you inject yourself with the trigger shot to avoid the eggs to leave the ovaries for collection. Otherwise, you start bleeding and you have your period, which means you discard the eggs for that month. So you want the eggs to stay in the womb, in the ovaries.
So sorry to interrupt, what does the injections do?
They make you produce eggs.
Right, okay. So when you say day one of your period, as in you're bleeding on day one?
You're bleeding on day one, and you should start to inject yourself.
Yeah, okay.
So day one, as soon as you get your period, you call the clinic, you tell them, and they will tell you, okay, you have to start to inject yourself. And you start to inject yourself.
Is it uncomfortable?
It's uncomfortable. So the injections, the first time you actually do it is like, oof. There's an element of like, I'm scared, I don't feel comfortable with needles and all these sort of things. You will feel bloated. I was very bloated. I also obviously some women don't react very well to hormones, so you start maybe putting on some weight, maybe putting like water retention, and like you feel all the tired, you feel like all the possible symptoms, like similar to the period, I would say.
Fine.
So it's uncomfortable. Something that you should be aware is that also, and the clinic will tell you, there are side effects. So you could have what is called ovarian hyperstimulation. So you stimulate your ovaries too much, and that's, you have to immediately reach out to the clinic that you're doing the treatment with. They will make you go to check everything is okay. It will stop the treatment eventually or not. And there are factors so you need to keep an eye on it, but it's not comfortable. So if you expect egg freezing to be like a walking on the street, is nothing that you have not felt before, because every woman got the period. So not very much different from that, but there are risks attached to it. And it's important that every woman knows that.
Yeah.
So let's say, okay, you feel a bit uncomfortable, you finish, you trigger shot. In 36 hours, they will make you go back to the clinic. And that's the collection day. So after the trigger shot, they wait 36 hours. You go to the clinic, they sedate you, half sedation, put to sleep, depending on the clinic. And the procedure to collect the egg is 5 minutes. There's a needle, goes inside the womb. They almost suck the egg out. They put them on a dish, and they go in a nitrogen tank. When you wake up, or when you are relaxing in the room, they will come in, and the embryologist will tell you, you have 20 eggs, or you have 15 eggs, or so on, depending on how many eggs were suitable to be frozen.
Wow. Okay. And I'm guessing the younger you are, the more eggs you probably will be able to collect.
Depending on if you have conditions or not.
Fine. Okay.
So, like it varies a lot on the age. So technically, yes.
Okay.
You like the sooner you do, the better quality of the eggs, and the more eggs you will be able to collect.
And why do you want to collect so many? Because I always thought that you only need one egg
to get pregnant.
So why do you want to collect so many eggs?
So it's a great question. Each egg you freeze, it's an average of 6% chance of a live birth. This takes already into consideration all the factors of phoning an egg that is not a good condition and so on. So if you make your calculation, you need at least 15 eggs to be sure that you have a live birth.
Fine. Okay, amazing.
So egg freezing is a game of numbers.
Yeah.
So, and also like a recent study that came out at the end of last year shown that women on average freeze 9.5 eggs in this country, meaning that there's not sure that you will have a live birth. So to freeze 15 eggs at 35 years old, it's art. You will need to repeat the treatment multiple times, most likely.
So that's why, because I've heard people saying like, I'm on my second round of egg freezing. That's to collect more eggs.
Exactly. So to be sure you have a live birth, you need around 15 eggs.
And the risk of not having a live birth, is that because there's a risk in actually the freezing and thawing process?
No, that's very... Even the authority in this country for the clinics and the fertility is called HFEA, the Human Fertility and Embryo Authority. And they also say that, nowadays egg freezing is such an established procedure that also like the vitrification method, which is the most recent way, they suck out the water from the egg. The vitrification method is so well established that it's very rare that something goes wrong with the thawing.
Fine.
But one thing is when you freeze your eggs, you do not see the quality. So that egg might not be of a good quality and you will not know until you go and thaw the egg.
Okay.
So that's why the 6% that I told you takes also this into consideration. So if you freeze 15 eggs, we have to assume that, for example, 6 will not be able to use because they're not good quality.
So in a natural way, when you produce eggs that could potentially be fertilized, is it if it's not good quality, it won't be fertilized? Is that...
You mean when you do this naturally?
Yeah, because naturally I always just thought you have an egg and it gets fertilized and like that's that. But like if you're saying some of the eggs that you freeze won't be good quality so you don't know, is that the same naturally? Like are some of your eggs good quality and therefore they're not fertilized, or how does it?
So I'm not a doctor,
yeah,
but I know how this works. So like I'm just going to explain it from my understanding and from a patient point of view and from my understanding of the fertility space. Mm-hmm. But any gynecologist will be able to explain to you this more technical way. So when you get pregnant, it's true you need just one egg to be fertilized, right? So not every egg that we have will be fertilized, right? So for example, every month we lose some eggs and we lose them because they don't get fertilized. So consider the egg stays in the ovaries and then the sperm comes in. Sometimes the sperm doesn't come in. Right? So the sperm doesn't reach the egg. The sperm doesn't swim in the right direction. The sperm is not strong enough to fertilize the egg. Lose the tails before. There's a lot of factors why you do not get pregnant. Or the egg is not a good quality egg. Does some chromosome abnormalities. So it gets discharged. You have to consider that also like for an egg to stick to our endometrium, which is where you start basically growing so when you get pregnant, you have the sperm coming in, fertilize the eggs, the sperm lose the tails, and then that blastocyst becomes like an embryo, and then the embryo gets stuck in the endometrium. Mm-hmm. Sometimes our endometrium, which is a very smart organ of our body, detect some abnormalities in the embryo and discharge the embryo, which is a miscarriage. Mm-hmm. Right? So when you have a miscarriage is when the embryo gets discharged, mm-hmm. or there's no heartbeat and the embryo gets discharged. Our bodies are very smart working.
Yeah.
Way. They work in a very smart way. So there are loads of factors for an egg. Maybe it's not a good quality. Maybe the egg doesn't reach the egg. Maybe the sperm doesn't reach the egg. Maybe the endometrio detect that the egg has the embryo has some abnormalities, so it ejects the embryo out. So there's a lot of factors to when we become pregnant, you have to consider a lot of things. Women that are older, sometimes they have like less quality in the eggs, so it's more difficult to become pregnant because they get also more miscarriages. So it really depends on the age. But technically, to get pregnant, you just need one good egg that gets fertilized, but it's also the sperm. 50% of the equation is always the sperm.
Yeah, important to note, because I think a lot of the time there's a lot of pressure on the woman.
Yeah.
And it is 50-50.
It's 50-50. Especially now that sperm dropped in quality in the past 50 years.
Yeah, we'll touch on that as well. So can you tell the quality of the egg? Obviously not probably, I would be able to tell, but at the clinic, can they tell?
Absolutely not. When you freeze your eggs, you just freeze your eggs.
Yeah.
You can tell the quality when you go and phone the egg. They can see.
Okay.
And also so when you finish egg freezing and you want to use your eggs, it means that you're going to proceed to IVF. So you have your egg in a dish, and then you get the sperm from sperm donor, husband, partner, friend, whatever. Whatever. You need a sperm. So you take the sperm, they put the sperm and the egg on a dish, and then the sperm swims to the egg. There's a blastocyst, there's an embryo eventually, and then when it's an embryo, they implant it back in the woman's womb.
God, so clever. And how long does your egg last in the freezer? How long can you wait?
55 years.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And is there a cutoff as to when you can have the embryo replanted? So obviously you can't be...
Ethically, yes. Some clinics decide. So technically, there's no age. You can go at 50 and have a kid if you want to. In this country, they won't let you. Most clinic won't let you. I think the cutoff age that some clinic always say is 45 years old. Okay. So, yeah, obviously, ethically, there's a lot of question to raise. I'm going back and I'm going to implant an embryo at 50. My son is going to be 20 when I'm 70. Or is that ethical or not? There's a lot of ethicality that has been raised. And eventually, there's some risk factors to the woman at 50 giving birth.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to consider.
Fine. God, it's so interesting. And there's no risk in reducing the quality through the thawing process, because I would have naturally thought the freezing and thawing may affect.
So the thawing nowadays is so well practiced that obviously there are accidents that can happen, but it's very low, the percentage of that you will lose the egg throughout the thawing.
Okay.
I think it's I forgot the percentage, but most clinic they're above 90%, over 86%. I can have in mind this number on the thawing process. So it's super well established, and even the HFEA authority will say that. They always say, it's so well established that there's very little risk associated to it, but it can happen. That's why you freeze 15 eggs.
Yeah.
So that's also in the 6% number that I gave you before, percentage that I gave you, there's also this risk that could occur in the unthawing process. However, something to mention on the quality of the egg. If you're 25 and you freeze your egg, there's the very high chance that your egg will have a higher quality than if you freeze it at 36.
Right.
Okay. So your eggs at 36 will be lower quality than your eggs at 26 years old or 25 years old. That's to be considered. There's now a new machine that some clinic offer. It's a testing that they start doing that will be able to tell you the quality of the egg. It's an imaging, it's an AI machine.
Wow.
That will also be able to tell the quality of the egg. But I'm not going to say this too loud because not so many clinics have it. We have just one partner clinic that has it, and they make you pay, I think, 600 to 900 pounds to do this additional test if you want to. This will tell you your eggs have a good quality or a less good quality.
Okay. And are there any lifestyle factors that you can do to help the quality of your eggs? I mean, obviously we can't design our own eggs, but like, is there anything that we can do actively to help that?
So I receive this question on a daily basis.
I can imagine.
And our doctor too. I am a firm believer from a patient point of view only, not from a medical point of view. So take what I say like from my personal journey and my experience, that you should arrive at the treatment with a chill mindset. So whatever makes you relaxed and whatever makes you less anxious, you should definitely arrive at the treatment with a chill mindset and relax as much as you can, right? Also, like if you smoke, they will tell you reduce or stop smoking because that affects your fertility. And also if you're drinking, reduce the alcohol. That clinics will tell you. In terms of what you eat, in terms of your exercise, in terms of anything else, there's no medical evidence that your diet affects your fertility. And I would also say there's no medical evidence because there's no study. So nobody has done a study about it. They haven't put like women, oh yeah, let's put women on a diet and see how their eggs quality increase and not. So there's no studies showing that. That's why we, like doctor will tell you there's no medical evidence about it because there's no study produced that they can back their research on. I did a bit more preparation from my experience. I collected 18 eggs, 22 were not suitable to be frozen. So I got 18 eggs. And I mean, I'm not smoking, so that was not, and I don't drink. I have a good glass of wine on the weekend, but that's it pretty much. But I actually always train, you know, like I just kept a good lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I think also that's why the outcome of my treatment was quite good.
Fine. Okay. Just generally being kind of healthy and active and yeah.
If you can. But they will not tell you to, you know, like obviously, no, if you smoke 2 packets of cigarette, they will tell you stop.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the thing. Or if you're an alcoholic, that you have a problem.
Yeah.
You know, if you, like they will ask you, how many units of alcohol you consume per day? If your answer is 6, there's a problem.
Fine.
Like, so.
Yeah. And what about with men and sperm? So why is there a decrease in that at the moment? Because I'm hearing that quite a lot and I think that's really interesting. So why are we finding that?
So a recent study shown that there's a decrease in sperm quality because of lifestyle.
Interesting. And what are these lifestyle factors that are causing the decrease?
Alcohol, smoking, stress. These are the 3 main things for men. Wow. Stress, alcohol, and smoking. And then poor sleep and all of those kind of things. But stress is the main one. Interesting. So also like probably another thing that for men it's on their advantage is that they can increase the quality of the sperm. By changing their lifestyle. Increase the quality of the eggs, technically. Men can. So if a man goes on a diet, in 3 months he produces new quality sperm.
That's a bit unfair, isn't it?
No, it's very unfair.
Yeah. I love how there's a study done as well that shows that there's a decrease in sperm, but there's no study done on the quality of our eggs. I mean, that's just typical. Yeah. That's super interesting. And I also got a theory about heat. Like, what about like...
No, it's not a theory, it's true.
It's true.
When they cook the sperm, you can't use it.
Fine. So if you, I don't know, work your laptop on your lap, so that's going to have an effect.
Basically, they always tell you that your testicles should be, I forgot what's the temperature, I think like 36 or something. No, your body temperature is around 36, let's say.
Okay.
When you, for example, cycle, your testicle are closer to the body and they raise in temperature and you basically cook the sperm. Even when you go to the sauna, when you go to the steam room, like you cook the sperm, cook. I mean, like you heat up the sperm, so it's not it is not fertile essentially.
Oh my god!
But there's another condition about men that it's important that we raise awareness on. It's called varicocele. So it's a vein that they ejaculate, but there's no fertile sperm in it. So and it's like a little surgery that you can do. It's just basically a needle goes down the neck. And then release the vein, and then you're fertile again. But 1 in 6 men has varicocele, and they don't know.
So are there checks that guys can do to see the quality?
You have to pay.
Fine.
The NHS doesn't do it. Their doctors are not even be able to track it. I mean, your GP will not be able to track it. They don't do like testicle checking.
Okay.
No, they're GPs, general practitioners. So let's not assume like they know everything for things.
Okay.
So it's not only on the NHS, like this is like a big awareness.
Definitely.
But we also work on the side. It's not on Amilis Live, but we also have a lot of urologists that we work with one of the hospital we work with. And then when we receive this question, we know where to send our male patients.
So as women, we can do the AMH test. Can guys do that? No. Okay, it's just
there's no AMH for men. There's though they can do like some sperm, but they need to ejaculate. So they can do some sperm analysis, and they will. I'm not an expert on this, and again, I'm not a doctor, but they have to assess the morphology, so the shape, if they swim, if they're swimmer, and if they're swimming in the right direction, and the quantity of the sperm.
Okay, fascinating. And one of my questions was, is there a prime age to freeze your eggs? But I'm guessing from what we've been talking about, the earlier the better.
The earlier the better. It's dependent, obviously. I froze it at 32 and I have got 18 eggs.
Yeah.
So for me, it was okay. If you are 14, I've seen rarely women freezing eggs at 14, freezing 18 eggs. I've seen women at 25 getting the treatment for free because they donate half of the egg and they got like a lot. So you can also there's donor programs that you can at 25, if you decide to go ahead and you're super healthy, you can donate half of the eggs and keep half of the eggs and you get them for free.
Wow, amazing.
You get the treatment for free.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's touch on price, because I think at the moment I'm like, right, get into the clinic and freeze my eggs now, but I'm guessing there is a cost to this. So, and this is probably one of the barriers to people doing it.
100%.
And you can't do this on the NHS.
No, unless you have cancer, and before you started your chemo, the NHS will offer it. I don't know a lot of people that actually even knew about it before starting chemo.
Okay, wow.
So yeah, because chemo obviously affects the egg counts, the quality of the eggs and everything, of course, unfortunately.
And what is the average cost? I'm guessing it kind of changes clinic to clinic?
No, it's very similar. It's maybe 200-300 difference in pounds. So at that point, you really don't care.
No.
It's around £6,000 per cycle. Around. Some clinics can be 5,600. Some clinics 5,800. Some clinics 6,200.
Yeah.
At that point, it's okay.
So it is expensive procedure to go through. For one cycle, meaning one period.
Meaning, you can say one period if you want. Yeah.
One round.
Yeah.
And then, but how many rounds do people often do?
Around 2, depending on the age. Because at 32, I got 18, for example. There are some women that they do it at 37 and they got 4 eggs. You need more. So you need to do another cycle.
Fine. And at that point, if you've already paid 6,000, you're going to be like, well, I may as well. It's not, you're not getting what you want.
The second cycle, it's usually a bit cheaper because you don't have to do a lot of testing that they make you do. For example, they do some testing to see if you have some condition like chlamydia or hepatitis, all of this, because your eggs eventually need to be stored separate from the others.
Fine.
So this cycle package is also like £500-600. The second time, if you do it quite close to the first one, you don't do this or you don't do a vaginal scan, so it gets a bit cheaper. There are also multi-cycles that our partner clinic offers. And Amilis, by the way, we have all the costs lined up.
Yeah.
So you can compare the clinics and you can understand all the costs, and you can also see which one has more competitive advantage in terms of multi-cycles, if you're gonna need one.
Fine. Okay, interesting. I feel like there's a rise in people freezing their eggs. Are you noticing that with Amilis? Are you seeing more and more? Why do you think this is? Is it the awareness? Is it our lifestyles? Why do you think there's a rise in it?
So egg freezing in 2 years had a 240% growth, which is interesting, consider that you have to pay for this treatment.
Yeah, that is interesting.
It's the highest out of the pocket paid treatment ever.
Wow.
So it's very interesting, that there's this big growth. And I do believe that we start to talk about it. We start sharing about it. We are starting to remove some stigma about it. And that's why, and you know, also like the media, eventually they have this on the radar in a bad way, because most of the media I've seen, like the Times published an article, 3 weeks ago that was pretty intense, to be fair. I understand that there are women out there that regret to have done the treatment because of their personal reason, because it's expensive, because they didn't get the outcome they wanted to. But I always also invite medias, and if you can be against it, you can have your own opinion, but let's not forget there are women out there that actually have conditions.
Yeah.
You know, like, because I've seen sometimes comments of people and say, oh, you just want to delay your motherhood because you want to go out partying and traveling and stuff. Maybe it's a case of some women, but there are women out there that actually have condition. They're gonna go on menopause at 35 years old. Yeah. Are we condemning this treatment for everybody?
Yeah.
We should provide an option. Nowadays we have so much option around a lot of things.
Yeah.
Why are we condemning this treatment? And also, like, again, like, I understand that, so like probably for some people you could see that society is forcing you to do this treatment. Now, like, I understand every possible argument that men especially, or women have, but I invite you also to think about it in the bigger picture. That, for example, like statistically, we are not becoming mothers at an early age. Every year, the age of our becoming mother is getting higher and higher and higher. I think it's like 31. In the developed countries. 31 for fertility is not young.
No.
You know, so, you know, let's consider all of these factors before we condemn, egg freezing, influencer are bombarding with this kind of, you have to think that also, like, maybe influencer, maybe, you know, Kim Kardashian sharing her journey, maybe people talking about egg freezing, they want to raise awareness for women to go out there and first understand their fertility. Maybe egg freezing is not for you, fine, you know, like, but maybe it's for other people that don't have other options.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I don't understand why people are condemning it, because it's a choice, and also you're paying for it yourself. Like, it's an expensive procedure. You're deciding to part with your money to do it. It's your choice. Like, so what if you want to end up partying? It's up to you. Like,
exactly.
You're giving yourself options. I don't really see that there's any negative reputation to it.
But, you know, there was an argument also about clinic not showing up prices in the proper way, and then they ramp up to a lot of money. So that's also why we created Amilis. So you get, like, you check it out, you know, you're not going to spend less than £6,000. Few hundred less, few hundred more. Yeah. That's how much it costs.
Yeah.
And what's included, we broke it down. You compare, you check it out. So, you know, like, and the thing is, and this is like, I'm going to say that clinics are doctor people. They're medical people. They're not like expert also in business wise. So sometimes the way they show you the prices, but you don't really understand, because they're like, okay, so there's like this test or this other test, and this other test. And I'm like, okay, this is like, you don't go through it. And then you see the cost of the procedure, 3,800. And then you end up spending $2,000 more on this test. That's also something that, you know, like, you have to consider. Clinic put it there, they don't explain it properly, and, you know, like, then you ramp up the price and you're like, oof, like, they lied to me. And that I understand.
Yeah, get that.
You know, like, that I understand that, you know, like, misleading prices is something we're working on very actively. And, you know, like, I rather have our patient thinking that they're gonna pay £7,000 and then end up paying 5.5, rather than say you pay 3,800 and they end up paying $6,000.
Yeah, 100%. What about the reputation that guys have of it? Do you think men find it strange? If you meet, let's say you've frozen your eggs at the age of 31 and you're single, and then you meet a man at 33 and then you've got your eggs frozen. Is there a stigma that men have on it? Are they like, oh, I don't know, like, do they find it strange?
Well, maybe. If that's the case, you should drop the guy.
Well, yeah. He's not the one for you. Very true.
But, like, it's like, you know, actually, how I see it is that you're hiring up your options to have kids in the future eventually, the possibility to have kids in the future. You know, like also like I've seen a lot of media saying egg freezing not an insurance. It's true, it's not an insurance. You need a number of eggs eventually to be sure you have a live birth. You need to do it sooner rather than later and so on. And it's not obviously like it doesn't guarantee you to have a kid. No. You know, like it's like how it is. It higher up your chances to try in the future. And also like I think as a woman, I would have that feeling in my mind that I've done enough, and I will live like in peace if that didn't work, rather than regretting, because that we do. I as a woman, and I know a lot of women out there, we have a lot of regrets in 100%. If we have not done enough. And I've seen couples splitting up because they were like, oh yeah, cool. Then you start to have a kid, you have problems, and they split up because they've done 10 rounds of IVF, or it didn't happen and they had a kid, and they didn't agree on things before as well. So, you know, like I think that a man that knows that the partner has frozen the eggs, they should be grateful.
Yeah, because you feel like you have a duty to an extent, being a woman, to... Not all people want to have children, and I think that's, you know, that's totally fine, fair enough. But you have a duty to an extent to feel like that's your job, and you feel like you want to be able to give yourself all those options in order to do so.
Yeah.
So with the cost, does it include the thawing and IVF process?
Nope. That's on the top of it.
Okay.
So this is just freezing eggs. If you have to go and use your eggs, I would say like nowadays is around £2,000.
Okay, fine.
Because you have to get the sperm. So also depends, are you using a sperm donor? Are you married now and you have your sperm from the husband? Have you legally agreed with a friend to use the sperm? You know, like there's a lot of factors that you have to consider. Let's assume in the easiest case you have the sperm of whatever, partner, husband, whatever. And they basically, what happens is that they work with your cycle. So they have to basically thaw the egg, use the sperm, put them in a dish, get the embryo, and then they will work with your cycle. You don't have to inject yourself anymore.
That's good.
And then you basically like just place the embryo inside the womb, and then they see if you're pregnant or not.
Okay.
So most the cases you don't take medications anymore. If you froze your eggs at 28 and they're gonna be super quality, most likely you get pregnant immediately. Most likely you get pregnant easier than if, let's say, you use them at 36 and you froze your eggs at 28, for example. Yeah. The eggs are going to be the quality of the 28, so you have higher chances. Yeah. So, you know, like it's just they follow your cycle to implant back the embryo.
Okay, interesting. And is there a higher chance of a miscarriage through this process?
It depends on the woman, and miscarriages can happen for all the sort of reasons, you know, but I can't say. Fine.
And let's touch on contraception. So now you're in the fertility space. What are your thoughts on contraception and the effect that contraception has on our fertility and our egg quality and all of that?
So I know that there's a lot of studies that are coming up, and also like one of our friends, for example, they have a contraceptive companies, and they are running a clinical trials on women that use like out of the shelf, like prescription contraceptive, but they are all the dosage is the same for all the women, which is technically wrong because we all have different hormone levels. And they are actually coming up with some interesting facts on women that have endometriosis or they're obese, or, you know, like, because our hormones are so different. So my take is there's a lot of research that is happening in this space. We should keep an eye out, because with women that have condition, or they have obesity problems, or they have, endometriosis or polycystic ovaries, there will come some anti-contraception that will address their hormones level better and affect less their fertility. To date, there are some studies showing the effect of taking the pill, for example, and fertility. I don't have the numbers on the top of my mind, so I'm not gonna preach on numbers on this. Ultimately, from my experience as a patient taking hormones, taking like pills, I remember that my body shape changed a lot, and I had some problems through it. But also, but it also like until we see some research of women getting off the pill and then seeing the fertility or how the hormones levels changed, we can't say. No, and not every doctor will say. But I also would say that we as women are led to believe that we have to live with pain during periods, with not getting pregnant in your early 20s, otherwise you're going to ruin your life, you're not going to do this. I would say also we need to change this dynamic, because and then as soon as you're 30, then you're like, in your mind, I'm like, oh no, I need to get pregnant to find a husband, this is the time I have, this biology, blah, blah. So like we live in a society that eventually, like first you don't get pregnant, then you have to get pregnant, finding a husband, freezing your eggs, and all of this shit. So, and
it's a lot
to handle. So also contraceptive, they have to be more tailored to the women's needs.
But that's like the key message in health at the moment. Like, I speak to different people every week, and the bottom line of every conversation is do your research, work out what's right for you, go and see a personalized health person, get your tests done, work out what supplements you need, Like, it's also personalized. But when it comes to contraception, it doesn't feel like that. It's very much like, these are your 3 options, you look at the pros and cons, which one do you personally prefer, done. It's not like, this is the tests and you should do this because of X, Y, Z. And it's so true. Like, you start having your period and the first thing you think about is, how do I stop getting pregnant? How do I stop? Like, the biggest question in your mind is, what contraception method am I taking? And that's like the focus throughout your early 20s or your late teens, early 20s. And then suddenly you hit a wall and you're like, oh, future, children, marriage, partner, husband. Oh my God, I've got to do everything to make myself the most fertile I can.
Yeah.
And it goes from one extreme to the other, and that's so wrong.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of factors to consider in this societal picture too, but that's mainly it. That's my thought is that we need to change the dynamic, and eventually, we have to do our research in terms of what are my options right now for anti-contraceptive. Yeah. And there's a lot of work to do.
Definitely. There is a lot coming through now between like non-hormonal and hormonal, and there's a whole, like, people are going from the non-hormonal methods. And
if you're really not trying to get pregnant, I got pregnant. I'm pretty sure I got pregnant not during my fertile. I mean, obviously I was fertile, but theoretically my app, it was telling me that it was not on my fertile window.
Oh, wow.
So I would take everything with a pinch of salt.
Fine. I've always been a bit skeptical about that, personally.
Choices. But I got pregnant not exactly in my fertile window, so you never know. And my mom got pregnant of me wearing a coil, the copper coil. Yeah, because it moves.
Yeah, so interesting.
And a friend of mine too. And she was 42 with 2 adult kids in their 20s. So.
Wow. And the copper's a non-hormonal, right?
No. Yeah. That copper, the coil with the copper, made of copper, is non-hormonal.
Yeah.
But it can move.
Yeah. So I, seriously oversharing now, but I had the implant it was amazing for me, worked really well, had no problems, had 3, and then the third one didn't work so well. So then I was like, right, non-hormonal, like, let's try and get the period back, because obviously you lose it, that's what happens. And then I was going to go for the non-hormonal coil, but they were like, I would advise you to get the hormonal one. Because they said that it increases your pain. And they said it can really hurt. And if you're doing it, if you haven't got a massive reason to go for that or go for a hormonal, I would advise hormonal because it's more comfortable. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay. And I'm now on the hormonal one, and I'm fine. But there does need to be more studies, because I don't know.
You don't know the effect of it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so interesting. Wow. I mean, I literally feel like I've got a million other questions to ask, but we've already been talking for an hour and it's gone so quickly. So we'll wrap it up. We have one final question, which is bringing it all back to food, which would be, what would your last meal be? Starter, main course, and dessert.
Okay. So starter, I would definitely go with some raw fish. with a bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper.
Very nice.
Maybe like some sea bass carpaccio or king prawn carpaccio. Then as a main, I'm a big fan of pasta, so I can have some linguine with vongole. I know all of this is basically Italian. I'm very Italian.
Very nice.
So I go with fish or anything, like with fish and pasta. And then as a main, I always like a good turbot.
Oh,
like
nice.
the big fish with some potatoes inside. Dessert, I'm not a huge fan of sugar in general, but maybe an ice cream, something.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Sarita, thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, this is probably one of my favourite episodes because I'm there like, wow, I'm genuinely going to go on Amilis right now and order this test because I just want to know. And like, I'm 25, I want children, but I haven't thought about where I'm at in my fertility journey. I've got no idea. And actually I should know at 25.
You should.
Because in 5 years, I'm going to be like, I mean, again, we have this big plan, right? And when we're young, we like plan out our futures, which, life doesn't work like that.
Also, you have to consider how many kids you want.
Yes.
Because if you want 3, you're going to get to start early.
Yeah.
Unless you want to be pregnant continuously in over a year. But sometimes I hear women that are like, okay, I want 3 kids. Okay, you need to start around 27.
Yeah.
So.
I'm not ready to start at 27. Like, it's scary and like you feel bad, but like I've got plans for my career. I've got plans. I want to do different things, and it's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So thank you so much for coming on and telling me and teaching me all things egg freezing. I'd never considered egg freezing before, but I did so much research on this before you came on, and because I was like, this is a brand new world for me. So I listened to other podcasts. I like read a lot of your blog, which is great, by the way. And I'm like, seriously would consider it. Just give yourself the option. I think it's amazing to have good quality eggs in the freezer when you want them, if you need them. I think it's amazing.
Very true.
So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.